All right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, guys? Vince Dow here. Be sure to leave a like. Be sure to subscribe if you are new and watching on the replay. But recently, well, let's put it this way. The midterms are coming up very fast. And so recently, over the past few weeks, we've had a lot of different candidate debates, right? Congressional debates, Senate debates, gubernatorial debates. A lot of people are probably curious what happened during those debates and, what the kind of outlook is for each of the candidates. They're too lazy to go sit through an hour of debates. And so what we are doing tonight is very quickly just summarizing, recapping. I'm give you kind of my thoughts on reaction, not just on the debates of all of these major candidates, but also kind of where I see their campaigns headed. What's the outlook here? I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be more of like a structured podcast format. But, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's just get started here. And I actually forgot to put the overlay on this thing. So let me just put the generic Vince Dow overlay. Should we do this one or should we do that one? What do you guys think? We might as well go for this one. I feel like it looks official. It looks cool and whatnot. But all right, let's get right into this, folks. So let's start off with Herschel Walker, shall we? Herschel Walker recently had his debate with Raphael Warnock. And the reason I pick Herschel to go first is because he is precisely the candidate that I've taken some flack from some people. Don't get me wrong. Most of them are liberals. Okay, very few are actually conservatives. There's a select few holdout of conservatives who just seem not to get it on this issue. But, but the common criticism has been, well, Herschel Walker is a terrible candidate. Okay, that's what they've said. Herschel Walker is a terrible candidate. And I've acknowledged his past. We've went over his past. I've explained to you kind of why, when I go over the timeline of his life, I look at him and I'm like, I think this is someone who actually did live a very flawed life, but also has a very moving and inspiring story of redemption. Can we really hate the guy for that? But, the big concern has been how articulate is he, right? Because this guy, he's not a polished politician. He's a running back. He's an athlete. You know what I mean? Well, Herschel Walker, folks, I hate to break it to all the haters who are always like, he's such a bad candidate, bro. How can you get behind this candidate? Because my defense has always been like, yeah, he's kind of inarticulate. He's not like the best candidate. But then at the same time, he's Herschel Walker. Okay, he's a legend. Okay, and frankly, to break it to you, if you do not live in the geographical South or parts of the Midwest, there are just a lot of people who will not understand this, right? They will not understand how significant it is. Herschel Walker, Heisman Trophy winner, last guy, if I'm not mistaken, to bring a national championship to the state of Georgia up until very recently, right? This is a big deal. It's going to carry him. And this is what I've said, and people have been like, no, but okay. So with that acknowledged, though, we have talked about the fact, right, that Herschel Walker, he's not the most articulate. That's not his strong suit. So all the haters have been saying, oh, he's going to fall apart in the debate. When they go up to debate, the campaign's going to be totally over. Well, here's the honest analysis of the Herschel Walker debate. He did fine. That's the truth. And let me say, I don't say he went out there and crushed it. He didn't go out there and absolutely destroy, epically own Raphael Warnock, but that's not what he had to do, right? He still is the slight front runner in this race, okay? And everyone knows that the guy is not very articulate, okay? The guy's not very articulate. And so with that said, not a lot of people had very high expectations for him. So all that Herschel Walker had to do, number one, is just go out there and not crash and burn. That's all that he had to do. And, honestly, if you ask me, he did that, right? And so I think now, so the scandal has already happened, right? They broke their big scandal. In my opinion, he's lasted it out, right? He's taken the worst of the damage. Now he's recovering. Who knows? Raphael Warnock might get a scandal in the next few weeks. I think they've done what they can do to Herschel Walker. And if you're Raphael Warnock, that real finishing blow on Herschel was going to be that debate. And Herschel, I don't know what he did. He turned on the Jets there, okay, but he survived it. He's going to be fine. I think he has a very good shot in November, and I'm not going to pretend like I don't have some personal interest in it. I really do, because, he's someone who I think the type of people who, number one, threw him under the bus, like the other Republicans who threw this guy under the bus, cowardice in a lot of cases, a lack of moral courage, and in other cases, just like pseudo intellectualism that, quite frankly, we've talked about this before. I think we're doing fine. The warlock is desperate. This is so true. How is anyone complaining about Herschel's speaking abilities when the president can barely function? Well, that's the thing, right? That's the other thing too. And like I said, Herschel did not have to go out there and go Ben Shapiro 2015 transgender debate panel mode on everyone. All he had to do was hold his own, and he did that, right? The general consensus is that the debate was a draw, right? Warnock's people are saying Warnock won. Herschel's people are saying Herschel won. That's good for Herschel Walker, and that's frankly all we needed. And so, I think in this case, a lot of the planned distrusters on that front are going to be a little bit embarrassed. Okay, let's move on to the Blake Masters debate. I'm trying to load these clips into here. I have clips of the Blake Masters debate that I do want to play, and it is not working, folks. It is literally 1984. Okay. So let me see if we can get this to work in a second. But while I try to get that figured out, I'll just kind of give the rundown here. So Blake Masters, Mark Kelly. This is, as we all know, a race everyone's paying attention to, and this is a really close race, right? Is Masters necessarily the front runner in his race? In this race, actually, as a matter of fact, I think many would say Kelly is a slight front runner. It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a really close race, and so usually candidate debates don't really do much. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how much this will change the entire dynamic of everything, but I would go so far as to say that why is this clip not working? This is literally 1984, folks. We can't get. Well, I can get the audio to work. Okay, I can get the audio to work, so maybe that'll be enough for us here. Okay. I do need a picture of it, though. So the first thing I want to talk about in the debate is not Mark Kelly. It's not Blake Masters. It's actually the libertarian guy here. So I'm gonna pull up a picture because you need to see what I'm talking about here. Okay, I believe his name was Mark Victor. Somehow he managed to sneak into the debate here. I assume he must have been polling at like enough of a threshold to where he was able to do that. So let me just put a picture on the screen so that we can demonstrate this, and then I'll play the audio that we were talking about earlier. Okay, so this is the libertarian. He was the third guy on the stage. Let me just say, so what have I often said about libertarians and the Libertarian Party? And not just the party, but specifically the party especially, right? Especially the party. I've called them the party and the movement of overgrown children. Okay, that's very often the term I have used because to me, that's exactly what libertarianism is. It is a phase we all go through when we are 15 years old, 16 years old. And it's kind of like an intermediate phase we go through, right? So I should say overgrown teenagers, like that would be the more accurate thing to do, but we'll say overgrown children because people know what that means. Okay. Because when you're, I don't know, it happened to me when I was like 15, 16 years old. So you first get interested in conservatism and you're just like, rah, Trump, America, patriotism, this and that. When you start to get a little bit more engaged in political ideas, political thought, at first, libertarianism sounds so smart because it's so like logically consistent and it just makes so much sense and it's so principled and this and that, right? And so when everyone's 16 years old or so, maybe a little bit older, but mentally 16 in the head, they go through that Ayn Rand phase, the Ron Paul phase, the libertarian phase where all they care about is the live and let live, all that stuff. And then the natural evolution of most conservatives is that when they get a little bit older, and they begin to live a little bit more in reality, they drop the libertarian stuff. Okay. But I think when you look at a lot of older libertarians, like leaders of the Libertarian Party, I think this dude right here is a prime example. I'm really regretting the fact that we can't get the video to work because you can totally see it. He's a man-child. Literally, this individual, Mark Victor, is such an obvious man-child. Okay. Like quite literally, the way he speaks, the way he looks, the way he acts, the way he presents himself. It didn't help the guy's case that he was the shortest and smallest person on the stage either. And I'm short too. I'm like 5'8", so I can't really talk. But you know, I'm just breaking down the optics. I'm a mere commentator reacting to what I saw. Okay. And let me just say, you know, the optics of him were not good. I don't know how this guy made it on the stage to begin with. Okay. I was not impressed by this candidate at all. But long story short, I do want to play the clips here so we can demonstrate what I'm really talking about here. Before we get into the Blake Masters stuff at all, I was very entertained by this. Okay, I gotta admit that. Let me see. Maybe we can get it to work on QuickTime Player, but I don't know if you'll get audio here. Is the issue? Let's try it though. Let's try it. Let me know if there's audio here. I don't think there will be, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, so I'm gonna need a sound check from everyone in a second here. Window. Okay. Let me know. Can you guys hear this? I don't think you can. Sadly, I'm pretty sure you can't. But okay, let me know in the chat really quick. Did anyone hear that? Did anyone hear that? No sound. Yeah, okay, that's what I expected. Okay, literally 1984. Okay, well, I'll play it with the sound in a second. It won't show the image, but you can kind of see, right? Can you kind of see the utter man-child in the way he looks? Well, let's listen to his voice, and now let's listen to the way he speaks, and I will 100% show you what I am talking about. So, all right, hold on here. Let's see, which clip is this?
How long? But nobody ever gets it done. We need to get it done. I'm in favor of a comprehensive overhaul of the entire.
Okay, hold on. You know what? Why don't let's just play it from the actual debate, because I kind of remember the timestamps here. We'll do that. That seems smarter. We see but no sound. Yeah, I know. All right, give me a second here. All right, give me a second. We're having a little boomer tech moment. Blake Masters, Arizona Senate debate. His opening statement, I thought, in my opinion, just told it all. So we'll go to his opening statement, and then I'll play you some stuff he said about immigration, and then we'll get into the actual discussion of Blake Masters here. Okay.
As it will help determine
all
which
right.
party will control the Senate.
Here we go, folks.
We're raising our 3 little boys here now.
We're back. We're working.
We're sick of seeing Arizona families suffer just because Mark Kelly wants to fit in D.C. Send me to the U.S. Senate, and I will put Arizona families first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we
all right, ready? Here we go.
Live and let live. That's my position on every issue. Live your life however you choose. Just let other people do the same thing. My name is Mark J. Victor, and if you're tired of
do you guys see what I'm talking about? Do you got he literally is a man child. Like I always say this, and people are like, "What are you talking about, bro?" Like and I say libertarians are overgrown children, because I still see that teenaged, adolescent, conservative kid like that discovers Ayn Rand for a few months. You still see that like very adolescent, teenage mindset and mentality. They are like 30, 40 years old, and they still act and talk and cling on to that stuff that you supported when you were like 15, 16 years old, when I supported when I was 15, 16 years old, right? And people are like, what do you can see it. You can see it in the way Mark Victor talks, acts, looks. Like the guy literally is a man-child. Okay, like listen to the way he, like, you can just totally see it in him.
Same old politics. I'm your guy. I'm a proud Marine Corps combat veteran. And for the last 28 years, I've been thinking outside the box as a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah, he's been thinking outside the box. You know, they're very revolutionary. Live and let live. America has never heard such a thing. You know.
But the most important thing I've done was found the Live and Let Live global peace movement. We got 2 rules. Don't infringe on anybody's freedoms. And let's just inspire people to be good humans. The Republicans and
wow, just revolutionary. And so let me say also, yeah, we don't need third parties in political debates. No, we don't. We absolutely don't. And this guy was living proof. I mean, he was like comic relief to an extent. I can't lie. I was kind of, sometimes it just frustrated me, but sometimes it made me laugh. But that's what he was. He was the man-child clown show of the actual debate that was going on between adults. Okay, like that's literally what he was.
Democrats together, both are responsible for $31 trillion in debt and the highest inflation we've seen in 40 years. Unnecessary wars, a mismanaged pandemic, and a tribalism that is tearing us apart. What?
Really, dude? We've never heard that before. Wow.
One of them kisses Biden's ring, the other kisses Trump's ring. I don't kiss anybody's ring. Unlike my opponents, I am not here to impose my personal views on anyone.
What are you there to do then? What are you there to do then, fellow?
To tell you about my plan to achieve freedom and peace for everyone.
So anyways, just to give you an idea, right? So he went on to and here's the fundamental problem with the Libertarian Party, and here's why they will never go anywhere. They try so hard to appeal to people in both parties, and they fail at doing either of them, right? So the first thing they did in this debate was they had a debate over like inflation. They talked about inflation, spending. Mark Victor goes out there and says, well, Republicans say they're for fiscal conservatism and they're against inflation, but they've actually been spending a lot too, which at that point I was like, hey, this guy is just in good faith. Okay, let's pretend. I was like, this guy, he'll peel off some Blake Masters voters, right? Because Blake, I support it, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of more of like an economic populist. He's a less conventional Republican, especially on economic issues. Maybe like this guy will manage to psyop some people into thinking Blake Masters is some type of like socialist in sheep's clothing or whatever, and get a very small percentage of stupid, just the lower common denominator of Republican voters, maybe to break ship a little bit. And then I saw him say this, which of course is like, what do we expect from libertarians? They always manage to shoot themselves in the foot. And then I was like, no, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Let me play the clip here. I'm just going to play the audio, but because the video's not working, but here we go. All right, here we go. This is on the debate of immigration. Okay, you guys ready? I'll just do it like this.
Administration after administration after administration, they're bickering about securing the border and spending money, but nobody ever gets it done. We need to get it done. I'm in favor of a comprehensive overhaul of the entire immigration policy.
All right, what does that look like, Mr. Manchild Victor?
It doesn't have to be very confusing. We had a great immigration policy in this country in the late 1800s, early 1900s. We didn't ever have a term.
We had a great immigration policy in the late 1800s, the early 1900s. Oh, you mean the period in American history where America was on the brink of like civil strife? You mean the period where anarchists were frequently committing terrorist attacks and assassinated like several presidents in a row? Like the late 1890s, early 1900s, you had it every other year. You had an anarchist shoot the president. Do people remember this? How do you think Teddy Roosevelt became president? He was vice president, and the president got assassinated by an anarchist. Teddy Roosevelt almost got killed by an anarchist, literally got shot. Like, this was America in the 1900s. Race riots were happening in New York City and all across the country. You had gangs in New York. I know that's like the 1860s, but that was the honest situation in like a lot of parts of New York and across the country. America was a mess. Okay, you guys are so against socialism. Eugene Debs won a somewhat surprising share of the vote in multiple presidential elections because America really was that unstable and chaotic. So he points to the time where America was incredibly on the verge of anarchy, like that period of time. You mean the period of time that Americans were sick of, and that's why in the 1920s they voted for a string of conservative presidents who would restrict immigration and brought in the 1924 Immigration Act to stabilize the system? Yeah, that period of American history, folks. Really a riveting, great immigration system we had during that period. What a joke.
illegal immigration. There was just immigration. It wasn't a big deal.
You guys got that? There was not a term illegal immigration. There was just immigration. It was not a big deal. Clearly, it was a big deal because, like I said, American society was on the brink of chaos every single year. Anarchists were trying to assassinate the president like every single year. Actually, it was a big deal. And it was such a big deal that in the late 1910s and early 1920s, the American people got behind a number of restrictionist immigration acts, 1924 Immigration Act being the prime example, but there were actually several. Woodrow Wilson did a few, Harding did a few, and then Coolidge did the famous 1924 Immigration Act. It was a big deal to people. It was a big deal to people. And, you know, that's why you had movements to get the situation under control. Gee, I wonder why people, called for the 1924 Immigration Act. I really wonder why. I mean, things must have been such a paradise before, never mind the race riots and the constant assassinations and the chaos in our cities and the horrid working conditions for a lot of people, by the way, right? Because, some things never change. Back in the day, you know why there were so many immigrants pouring into America? Labor, specifically factory labor, right? Because they knew the immigrants would be cheap labor. That sounds very familiar. Geez, it's almost like history repeats itself or something. But that's why you had the system of mass immigration. And because of that, you had very horrid labor conditions during the Gilded Age, Progressive Age, whatever. And that's why Eugene Debs, a socialist, a big, bad, scary socialist, that's why he was so popular, buddy, folks. Okay. So it's just a joke. But anyways, let's get through the rest of this clip here.
We welcomed immigrants to America. Most of the people who come to America, and I've been representing many of them over the last 28 years, the vast majority of them are great people. They come here to work, to pursue the American dream. But they should get nothing when they come here besides the right to peacefully pursue their happiness. Nope.
So they should get nothing when they come here besides the right to undercut your wages and take your job, right? But they're not going to be on welfare, so it's based. Okay, we're going to have open board. This is literally his take, and I don't think this is new to us. We understand this is the logical end of the libertarian take on immigration. Okay, so this is not anything new, but I just think it's funny. In the state of Arizona, okay, super chat, I'll get to it in a second. In the state of Arizona, where you have a border crisis going on, people are pouring across, they're coming in, they're not sending their best. Okay, to quote a very great man, they're not sending their best. They're sending drugs, they're sending crime. Some of them are rapists. Some, I assume, are good people, but truly they're not sending their best across that southern border. You have a border state, one of the major border states that they try to run across. And the libertarian candidate, who is trying to peel off mainly disaffected Republicans, is going to go out there and say that we shouldn't have illegal immigration because it should just be called immigration. To literally go out there and say we need the open borders policies of, and I quote, the late 1800s and early 1900s. Incredibly tone deaf, typical libertarian L, and it's so true. Elite Mythical for $10 says, "Libertarians, thank you very much for the super chat. God bless you." And it's so true. It's. I mean, what else can we say? They are literally libertarians, because that's all we can do at them is literally just lol. So
nobody has a right to live at the expense of another person. They should get no welfare or social programs at all.
Yeah, they should just be allowed to come here and live in tent cities and be homeless. Or if they're not homeless, take American jobs and then replace all the Americans at those American jobs. But that's based because they're not on welfare. Okay? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, dude. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like Nebraska, having them completely take over the agriculture industry, that's actually based because they're not on welfare. To have them come into this tech sector and take American jobs, H-1B visas, get them fired, all that stuff. That's actually good because they're not on welfare. What an utterly ridiculous take. Okay. And I will reiterate, What an absolutely tone deaf thing to say in Arizona. You know, you're talking about one of the states that has been hit the hardest by this issue, and he's going out here and saying, well, the problem is our borders are not open enough. What a clown.
But we do need to immediately secure the border. Nobody has a right to aggress against anybody else, whether they're inside or outside the border. Let's try to keep the bad guys out. We should streamline the asylum.
How are we going to keep the bad guys out if we have the immigration policy of the late 1800s? Explain that. Explain that, sir. You know, the immigration policy of the Gilded Age did not exactly keep bad guys out very well. Hence why they kept trying to assassinate presidents. But anyways,
process. It's ridiculous that it takes so long to get a reasonably simple hearing done. I am very pro-immigration. It's good for America.
I am very pro-immigration. It's good for America.
It helps our economy.
It helps our economy. The economy. Yes. Yes, of course. Great. Wonderful.
Issues as well. We need more younger workers. Can you imagine our situation? We got a huge labor shortage right now.
We need more younger workers. You got that, folks? So instead of saying, oh, well, we need more younger workers. So, and the open borders crowd, you know, because there's people on the left that say the same thing. There's people on the right. There's people in the middle. I wouldn't say it transcends political ideologies, but it really does transcend parties, right? Because you hear, you know, Republicans say this, like libertarian Republicans. This is a Koch brothers talking point. And then you hear people on the left say this stuff to kind of argue the same thing. Their main issue with immigration is not economic. It's more that they want to overturn America's culture and you know, demographics and all that, and you know, political electorate, all that stuff. That's more their agenda, right? But they'll say the same exact stuff to kind of cope and rationalize it. And it's like, you know, nobody ever, when we have this conversation, nobody ever stops and says, well, if we don't have enough young workers, you know, why don't we encourage people to have more kids? Why don't we encourage Americans to have more children? And you know, even so, I don't even know if that's true. I think it's more that we don't have enough skilled young workers, right? Kids are coming out of college, they can't find jobs, or they don't have a degree that, like, you know, they didn't get the education to be competent at those jobs or whatever. And instead of asking the question, A, why don't we have a large enough young workforce? And B, why is that young workforce not competent? And how do we make it competent? And instead of asking those questions immediately, you're like, well, let's just go to immigration. Okay, so, you know, keep that in mind. All the parents who are watching this, you know, maybe you're sending a kid through college, about to send a kid through college students, you know, keep in mind that that's the take. That's what you're being told. Actually, you're just not good enough, and we need to have an immigrant come and do a job that you could theoretically at least be trained to do.
We got lots of immigrants who want to work. We can't get a visa program so they can actually work. Let's get them to work. This is why Sheriff Hathaway in Santa Cruz County endorsed me, because I've got a plan. There is no perfect solution here, but we need a path to citizenship as well. Okay, I do not want to tear families apart.
So, you know, but that was the moment where I was like, okay, I don't think this guy's going to be a factor, because I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit worried, and I still am, but that kind of puts me at ease a little bit, because, you know, the guy's not going to get any degree of the vote, but this is going to be such a close race. If he gets 0.2%, that could screw with the race. It could tip it against Masters, because that's how close the margins are going to be here. And so it was really concerning to me that libertarians even got a candidate on that stage. And now, honestly, I'm still worried about it. But I have to say, stuff like that, I think, is ultimately really going to train wreck the libertarian candidate, Mr. Mark Victor, right? Because what disaffected Republican who's maybe a little skeptical of Masters, who supports that? Who supports open borders? Okay. Even most independents, most moderates don't support open borders, right? And I think it's an important issue to a lot of people. That alone is something I think can totally train wreck the libertarian. So I'm kind of glad he did that, because hopefully now he will be a non-factor. I think of so many moments in the campaign, we'll play one more that's just kind of funny. But of so many moments in that debate, I think that's a single moment where the Libertarian Party committed suicide. Okay? Because if you're trying to go after disaffected Blake voters or potential Blake voters who think he's a socialist or whatever, because let's be honest, that is the ideal base that, that 1% to 2% that maybe the libertarians would target. That's what I would do if I was trying to run the Libertarian Party. They're going to be completely turned off by going out there and saying we need open borders, which is what he said. That's literally what he said. So, all right. Well, last clip here.
Everything is up for a vote.
All right, listen to this one. Just average libertarian, folks. Okay, average libertarian. Here we go.
Everything is up for a vote. Very little should be up for a vote. Like, for example, who should represent the good people of the state of Arizona? That should be up for a vote. What should the age of consent be? This is something that reasonable minds.
Average libertarian, folks. I don't know what else to say. There's your Libertarian Party. Okay, kind of funny. We spent a little too long on that, but I found him to be quite entertaining. Again, literally the party of overgrown children. Literally the man children up there. Just kind of funny. Again, average libertarian. Okay, let's get into the actual debate itself. The real debate between adults and non-man children and serious candidates. Okay, Mark Kelly versus Blake Masters. I thought they did this debate in segments, and I watched this one a little bit more carefully because it's again the kind of more contentious one. I think probably more people are watching this debate than a lot of other debates. So I thought Blake did very well on the issues of immigration and inflation, and luckily for him, those were like the first two issues, right? And I don't know, especially with people watching online, they might not see the whole thing right off the gate. Okay, inflation. Mark Kelly doesn't have an answer. Okay, which, he tried to come back and say, oh, well, Blake Masters is trying to privatize your Social Security, right? He tried to do the Social Security thing back to Blake 15 years ago, 10 years ago. That might have been a lot more effective. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if that's very effective now. Okay, and it was something that was fairly glossed over, but inflation, immigration, Blake Masters, I thought did a fantastic job. Now, abortion, which is kind of like the middle topic, we kind of knew going in was the issue that, Mark Kelly was going to try to push very hard. And Blake is kind of in a tough situation on, independent voters, but also trying to keep the pro-life base happy, et cetera, et cetera. I thought he survived it is what I'll say. I don't think, I wouldn't say he exactly just turned it back, boomeranged it back on Mark Kelly. He did kind of struggle a little bit in that aspect of the debate. I thought Mark did kind of win that section, but I thought that by a little bit, the inflation section, the immigration section, I thought Blake kind of outweighed that advantage of that, right? By the way, at the end, they tried to talk about like election stuff, which, YouTube and whatnot. But I actually thought Blake did fine. Like he survived that because they're going to try to get him there too. They're going to try to say, do you believe, so-and-so take about the election? I thought he handled that well. Abortion, it was a little bit shaky. But, here's my thing about it, right? Is that section of the debate, was it going to be a surprise to anyone? Is it something that's really going to move anyone? Is this issue really going to be something that moves anyone? Like people know Republicans are the pro-life party, Democrats are the pro-abortion party. Is it really going to be this huge distinguishing issue? And when you look at a lot of these polls, a lot of the polls out there are saying, when they ask, what's the most important issue to you in this election? A lot of people are saying inflation, economy, this type of stuff, education, right? The issue of abortion is not ranking as high to a lot of people as maybe Democrats would have hoped. And so that's all to say, I think Blake sufficiently survived that to where I think he got out and can still claim a win on the inflation and immigration stuff to where I think the debate was a net positive for him, okay, is what I'll say. And I thought just generally speaking in terms of articulacy, I don't know what that word would be. I thought Blake was a little bit better. And optics. Okay, optics. I thought we're also on Blake's side here. All right, let me see if we can get an image of the debate, right? But it's like, we have Mr. Masters, who is, and listen, people are going to think that this is fairly frivolous. I'm telling you, it's not. I'm telling you that this type of stuff matters. Blake is just like unironically just like a better looking dude than Mark Kelly. Okay, like that's just the truth. He's taller. He has a very like sharp chin. And are we going to pretend like this doesn't matter? Are we really going to pretend like this doesn't matter? Okay, so this was kind of the site you saw the whole debate. Blake Masters towers over Mark Kelly. Blake Masters, the kind of the way he speaks, his mannerisms comes off better. He has hair. Mark Kelly is bald. No offense to our bald Americans, okay? But we kind of understand how this works, the dynamic here. He's got the red power tie on. Mark Kelly's tie kind of blends in a little bit more. I thought on the optical front, Blake was better. Okay, I just thought overall Blake just looked better, presented himself better, spoke a little bit better. And that counts for quite a bit. It counts for a lot more than you might think, okay? Because I know it's about ideas. It's about this and that. We're really asking the question here. We're not asking, are we convinced? Okay, we already know where we stand. We're asking to the people who genuinely, the few last independents out there who are genuinely trying to make up their mind. This type of stuff matters, right? Marxist Dixie, and it's so true. Women will vote for Masters since he's more attractive than Kelly. Again, true. Like this stuff absolutely drives elections. We shouldn't pretend that it doesn't. And Blake has the advantage here, which transitions us to talking about the Michigan gubernatorial debate. So again, actually, let's talk a little bit about where I think the race is going. I think this race is going to be very close. I will say that, but I think what we've seen nationally, right, nationally in the polls and whatnot, and kind of in energy, you sort of feel it. Late August, early September, not a good time to be a Republican, right? Our energy was dead. Our turnout was low. We were dropping in the polls and whatnot. Now you're seeing that start to reverse itself. Now you're seeing Republicans sort of are moving back to the position where they were at the beginning of the summer, where it's looking like it's going to be a really big wave. Polls are starting to show that. Early vote results here in Florida, as a matter of fact, are starting to show that. And so right now, I'm of the opinion, I think Blake's going to win. It's going to be really close. Arizona is I think they even said in the debate, like 80% of Arizonans vote by mail. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying keep that in mind when they report the results and how fast they're going to come in and whatnot. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, not suggesting anything else. Just noting that as a statement of fact. Arizona's like 80% vote by mail, but I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, I think he's in a position right now, especially you got to look at the national environment. That's what's really telling where I think he might have this. He might be able to do this. Mark Kelly, to his credit, and the one thing has going for him, he's running as a super duper moderate, right? Which he's not. He's not. You look at his voting record in the Senate, total Biden Democrat, bucked him on a few issues, and that's it. Total Biden Democrat. The guy's not even close to like a Kirsten Sinema, not an independent, not a moderate at all. But he is running his campaign as a moderate. He's saying, I disagree with Biden on the border and all that stuff. And so that obviously puts Masters in a little bit more of a difficult position because the energy in America right now specifically is against like Biden Democrats, more radical far left Democrats. Like that's what people, even the independents, they're really sick of. Mark Kelly knows that. He's trying to pivot away from that. It makes it a little bit harder for Blake to say, you are a Biden radical woke, Democrat, and I'm the common sense option. Mark, to his own credit, and what's going to make this a close race is the fact that he is doing a decent job of trying to present himself as the common sense option, right? Because I think that's what a lot of the American electorate right now is going for, is they want like just this a return to common sense, a return to anti-wokeism, which, I have my own things to say about that, but I'm just saying honestly, like that's probably where most Americans are right now. Okay. I don't want to, me personally, I guess I do want to return to common sense, but I don't want the same type of common sense that I think they think is common sense. I think we need a huge rolling back of the clock in terms of what common sense is. Obviously, a return to moderate 2010 Obama is not going to do that. But, considering that's where most Americans, I think, are, I think that's kind of the energy of the electorate. Mark is doing a decent job, a better job than a lot of Democrats at putting himself in that position. But still, like I said, it is just the energy of the national environment. I think Blake gets a very narrow victory. It's going to be close, like I said, but we will just have to see. Mark Kelly is just all talk. Blake did a good job as painting him as a Biden Democrat. Well, again, that's also good, right? He did a good job of that. He's always like, he says he's a moderate, but he's just in lockstep with Joe Biden the entire time. And it's true. It's true. So we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, kind of going off that last point, let's talk a little bit about the Michigan gubernatorial governors. Is gubernational a thing? I don't know. I'm making up words tonight. I'm literally inventing the English language tonight. But over in Michigan, and this is a race that Democrats are favored in. Okay, this is not necessarily a toss-up, but that Republicans have a shot in. It's the Michigan governor's race, right? Between Gretchen Whitmer and Tudor Dixon, folks. Okay. So let me. I'm gonna point out again. I'm gonna again hone in on this because I'll be honest. I didn't watch that debate. I did not watch that debate. In my opinion, I don't think we have to. Okay. The thing I pointed out earlier about how Blake is just taller and has hair and has a sharper chin. Let's be totally honest, folks. It is way more true about the race between Gretchen Whitmer and Tudor Dixon. Okay. And here's my analysis of the race. You ready? You ready? Besides the obvious factors that just determine, like the generic Republican versus Democrat factors, so the issues of policy, the energy, national environment, all that stuff. Besides the generic built-in advantages, Republican versus Democrat, generic Republican, generic Democrat, this race is really going to come down to a very simple fact, okay, in terms of which is the stronger candidate. Again, so I'm not saying it's the only thing driving the race. So before you come out, you're just saying everyone's going to vote based on that factor? No, but what I'm saying is it's party versus party, first and foremost. Like, that's how elections work, okay? You can be the coolest candidate ever, and you run as a Republican in California, you're not going to win. It doesn't matter. But that kind of hair-splitting factor, that vote-splitting factor, I'm going to be honest, it really does come down to this, okay? So we present an image here, folks. This is on the left. On the left, we have Gretchen Whitmer. On the right, we have Tudor Dixon. So listen, let me say this right off the gate. I disavow the simp politics stuff. Okay. And we know this. Okay. So I'm not like of the ideology we should pick candidates because they are attractive women. I'm very much against that. In fact, a lot of times I think that yields some very bad candidates, but I don't think Tudor Dixon is a bad candidate. But so again, I disavow the simp politics. But I also live in reality, and I know how people operate, specifically your average Midwestern man. Okay? And let me just point out what is brutally obvious here. And these are honestly not the best pictures to even make that comparison, but most of you guys have seen both of these candidates. Let's be completely realistic. One of them is named Gretchen. The other is not. The other has a decent female name, Tudor. It works, right? Tudor Dixon is actually, it rings, I think it kind of rolls off the tongue decently. But one of them is named Gretchen. The other is not. One of these two, and again, these pictures maybe don't show up the best, but we've seen them. One of these two is significantly more physically attractive than the other. And one of these two has a voice that is not ridiculously annoying. I mean, you've heard Gretchen Whitmer's voice. It's the worst. It's like the math teacher you didn't like in 7th grade. Or maybe, not really a math teacher. She's more like an English teacher, okay? The English teacher you couldn't stand in 7th grade because she gave too much homework and she was just very annoying and she picked on you to read in class when you weren't paying attention. That's Gretchen Whitmer. Are you seeing what I'm seeing in this race, folks? Okay, and honestly, that's all that we have to do. Okay, that's the. You might say that's narrow-minded. You might look at that and say that sounds ridiculous. I am serious when I say this. besides the generic factors of Democrat versus Republican, issue versus issue, the race seriously is going to come down to that. It is that simple, okay? And that is what, in my opinion, gives Tudor Dixon a shot in this race. Because don't get me wrong, the environment in Michigan, it tilts, it leans Democrat. It's not unwinnable for Republicans, but it's a bluer state than like in Ohio or even like a Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, right? I'm telling you right now, that is what gives Tudor Dixon a shot, and that's what gives Tudor Dixon a significant advantage. She's better looking, she has a voice that's not annoying, and she's not named Gretchen. I did not have to watch the debate. I didn't care. I knew what each candidate was going to say. I'm just telling you right now, that optical difference between Tudor Dixon and Gretchen Whitmer, it's going to make the difference, okay? And you might think that's cringe. Oh, why guys are such simps or whatever. By the way, I don't think it's just a guy thing. I think a lot of women, too, will look at that. Maybe it won't be necessarily a straight issue of physical attraction, but still, it's just kind of a fact of life. Like, better-looking people get advantages, okay? They really do, okay? And because I've heard women say the same exact thing about Gretchen Whitmer that men say. She's annoying. I can't stand her voice. I can't stand her smile. Let's not pretend as if that's not going to give Tudor Dixon an advantage here, because it absolutely will. Absolutely. Enclave Nationalist for $5 says, Vince, last week I was forced to watch the documentary 13 in my English class. I don't know what that is. But thank you for the $5. You know, but again, this is literally the case, okay? And look, say what you will about men voting like that and women voting like that. Say what you will about the process of kind of picking attractive people to run for office. But this is democracy, folks, okay? This is how it works. This is one of the reasons why we often say that democracy itself is kind of based on like just irrational factors, and why, you know, that's one of my critiques of democracy is like, stupid stuff like this can make the difference. Although maybe it's not always necessarily that stupid, but you know, stuff like this it's just reality, folks. It's reality. I see it. You see it. We don't have to pretend otherwise. Okay? Because it's not about substance. It's really not. No one are people, especially with Gretchen Whitmer's voice. I want to hone in on that. It is so bad. It is so bad. Do you really think your average person is going to be watching that debate and really breaking down every single person's argument? Really? Or are they going to listen to the voices and be like, wow, Tudor Dixon, she's pretty attractive. Gretchen Whitmer, she's like an annoying English teacher. It's going to come down to that. It really will. And for that, I think Tudor Dixon has a shot. She's an underdog. It's Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer is like a political machine at this point. I think she has a shot. I think she has more of a shot than people think. And that literally is the reason. I think she has a shot. You can get mad. I think it's true. Okay, I think it's true. Big Show says, be sure to hit the like button. So true. Hit the like button right now if you're watching. And cute dog, by the way. Cute dog. Is that a British bulldog or an English bulldog? Big fan. Big fan of the English bulldogs. They look so stupid. Like, they're just so dumb and fat. And because of that, they're hilarious. So I'm pro English bulldog. I know a lot of people just say they're ugly, and they are ugly, but they're like a funny ugly. Okay. So we love the English bulldogs. Colton Clark says, Vince, RCP 19 days before election polls 2016 to 2020 underestimated Republicans 5.7%. It's a toss-up, and the polls are trending Republican. Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think. Well, actually, we'll talk about the way I think the mass midterms are going to go later. But in Michigan, I'm just saying, it's not the most winnable race. I think we have a shot. I think we have a decent shot. Okay, let's continue down the slate here. JD Vance versus Tim Ryan. Folks, JD Vance is going to win this. Okay, I did watch the debate. If I'm going to be honest, it was one of the more boring debates. It was just kind of, I don't know. I didn't feel like the issues they even talked about in that debate were all that important. It really was like Tim Ryan saying, "You're Silicon Valley, and you know, you support the January 6th insurrectionists, and I'm like the moderate populist or whatever." But folks, JD Vance is going to win. Okay. And don't get me wrong, Tim Ryan, if you were to be a Democrat in Ohio, Mark Kelly, like I said, doing a decent job of it. Tim Ryan is doing a really good job at pretending to be a moderate, even though he's just a liberal. He's just a libtard. Like, he's your generic Democrat or whatever. But he's going out here and suddenly saying, I support tariffs and I oppose Biden's border policy and this and that. And so don't get me wrong, because of that, he'll probably do better. Okay. Folks, Ohio is an R+8 state at this point, right? The last few elections in Ohio decided by like 8 points. JD Vance is going to do just fine. JD Vance has the Trump endorsement. Maybe if Trump wants to, you do one more rally for JD, right? Because it's Ohio. People will always say, oh, Trump hurts us in general election season. No, he doesn't. Not in Ohio. Ohio is Trump country. Trump might, of any state compared to like just, because yeah, I'm sure like Trump is technically more popular in like West Virginia, but in terms of the environment versus how popular they are, is probably the most pro-Trump state in America, right? I think JD's going to do fine. And by the way, for what it's worth, Mitch McConnell and the Senate GOP is putting a lot of money behind Vance. Now, you might look at that and say, well, what's going on here, buddy? I don't care, honestly. I mean, but whatever. Because of that, too, I say I think he's just going to do just fine. Because Tim Ryan doesn't have the money. Yeah, he might be running the perfect campaign that you were to run if you were a Democrat in Ohio. He doesn't have the money. And by the way, he's still bashing Trump, right? Joe Manchin in 2018, he pretended to be a Trump Republican. Tim Ryan is pretending more to be like an Andrew Yang populist or something like that. But the bashing of Trump in an R+8 state, in a very favorable state, JD Vance is going to do fine. Okay? Maybe people are a little bit worried about that. I really wouldn't be too worried. I think you can virtually guarantee JD Vance is going to the U.S. Senate. Now, Masters, again, that's a close race. That's going to be something that, we got to watch carefully. I'm not too worried about JD. I don't know what you guys think. Again, watch the debate. Took nothing from it, if I'm going to be honest. It is what it is. But Noah Boyd, for $10, thank you very much. He says, I'm going to be infiltrating. We got a little donation train here going, folks. Thank you. I'm going to be an RNC poll watcher this year. We are infiltrating the RNC. That's good. That's good. If you have the time, if you can do it, yeah, go be a poll watcher, be it a precinct, work your precinct or whatever. That's great to hear. Thank you very much for the 10. And Christopher for 10 says, Tim Ryan says he wants to fight against the opioid crisis, literally got donations by Big Pharma. Fake. Yeah, it's so true. And in that debate, he tried to paint JD as like the pro Big Pharma guy, even though Big Pharma is behind Tim Ryan 100%. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think enough people are going to see through it. Don't get me wrong. Maybe the fact that Tim Ryan is running this fake independent populist campaign, maybe the race is within 6, within 5, within 4 even. All JD has to do is win. Okay. We don't get participation trophies in politics. Unless you're the Republican Party, in which case their entire everything is a participation trophy. But you know what I mean. I think we'll be fine. Okay, I think we'll do just fine on that front. But anyways, thank you guys very much for the super chats. Okay, so we've gone through quite a few here. Last one I want to talk about, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's going to win. We all know that. Okay, we're not, but I want to play this. I think B Tatum actually clipped it up, so we'll go there for a second. Marjorie is running against she's basically running against like this left wing Kim Klacik. I don't know if you've seen him. His name is Marcus Flowers, and he's just like a total like resist lib. But his whole thing, we're gonna take out Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever. Just check this out.
What is your process for fact checking and vetting the things that you say in public?
Okay.
Whoop it.
Gentlemen, which?
All right, let me share screen here. Hold on. Sorry, having a stupid moment here. Okay. All right, here we go. Got more super chats. Let's do that before we talk about it. SpongeBob with an R by his name would win Ohio. It's true. At this point, it's true. It's not the Ohio of 2011, 2012, 2008. Ohio is a Republican state. It is arguably almost a safe Republican state at this point. Like I said, I think we should be just fine. Noah Boyd for 10, thank you very much, says, got to see the Liberty Bell with some old friends. Also, have you started reading Wild at Heart, Vince? That's great to see that you got this. I've been to the Liberty Bell, great place. Have I started reading Wild at Heart? We're working on it. We're working on it. Okay, that's all I'll say. Thank you very much for the 10. Thank you guys for all the support tonight. Let's just play this. It's fun. It's satisfying. Okay, it's satisfying.
Sure.
That in the primary,
Marcus Flowers,
you will see
who's a man who wears a hat and doesn't own one single head of cattle. He's a liar, and all he has done is sent emails all over the country to raise money for himself, and he pays himself out of his campaign with your donation dollars. If you're a California Democrat sending money to Marcus Flowers, he's paying himself to run.
First of all, props to Marjorie for even debating, because she does not have to at all. There's literally no point. She's not going to lose. She's not going to come close to losing. She's going to win very big. But she debates anyway, and it was fun to watch. It really was. So
for Congress and pretend that he can beat me in a blood red Republican district. None of his Democrat defund the police, America Last policies represent our district, and I do.
What is your process for fact checking and vetting the things that you say in public?
The things I say in public are the truth, and that's why they're so offensive to Democrat activists in the media, just like you. Marcus, you're a father, and you are a representative of
base Southern grandma. Well, that's also very true. Okay. Marcus Flowers. People are going to say it's a racial thing. I'm just going to say it's not. Okay, but how does he come off? All right. You're just saying that because he's black. No, not entirely, okay? But who is more representative of the district? This is Northwest Georgia, rural Georgia. Again, the optics thing here. Okay, Marjorie wins, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Southern accent, blonde, grandma. Marcus Flowers seems like he would be the professor of African American studies at Georgia Tech or Emory. Okay, it's true. It's true. So
the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is the party of child abuse.
So
it's
true.
the party that represents
So
grooming
yes,
children and sexualizing them in school, teaching anti-white racism in the terms of CRT education, and genital mutilation of kids that can't even get a driver's license, can't get a tattoo, and cannot vote. How do you stand there and represent the Democrat Party as a father? And do you believe in genital mutilation of children under the age of 18 and these puberty blockers that have severe health consequences? Because I've introduced a bill to ban it and make it a felony to mutilate children's genitals. Do you stand by that?
Boy, that was a lot. And God bless you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. If you truly believe that I'm praying for you. You know, I believe in this country. I believe in our democracy. And I believe in standing up.
Literally his response, I believe in democracy. This is so sad. Can we get a kneel for George Floyd, folks? Okay. Don't you guys know Abraham Lincoln did not fight World War black people for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay. George Floyd did not die for this. He died for our democracy. This is so sad. Can we get a like and subscribe, chat? Every like and subscribe equals one knee for democracy. Okay. So, real.
For human rights. People come up to me every day and tell me how they feel attacked by you. And yes, I'm talking about children in our LGBTQ plus community.
Did you see what he said earlier? Oh, talk about children. So, well, no, what he's really saying is, yes, people come up and say they feel attacked by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, yeah, who feels attacked by Marjorie Taylor Greene? Pedophiles, Satanists, communists, child groomers, pedophiles, same thing. Many such cases. It's so true. So true. They're right to feel attacked.
Every day, Congresswoman Greene, seniors, Latinos, blacks, men and women, every day. This is how she treats the people of Northwest Georgia and the people of America. Attacks, constantly attacking. That's not representative, Green. You represent them.
I do. I represent and I will always protect children. And that's why I introduced the Protect Children's Innocent Act, to protect children who just may be confused about their identity. Kids need to grow up. They do not need to.
I'm sorry, but his last name is Flowers, not too masculine. It arguably helps him a little bit because he can't come off as too radical. Because like the name Marcus Flowers, right? When you hear that, do you think he's some like radical guy, or do you think he's like very laid back, nonchalant human being? Regardless, it doesn't matter. Marjorie's going to win by like 20, 30 points, and it's going to be fairly straightforward. So
have mastectomies,
thank you
castration, or take dangerous drugs that have serious health consequences. Marcus Flowers represents the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party is the party of child abuse. And we have to stand up and stop it right now. To protect children, we protect them from making serious mistakes that will last a lifetime. The same mistakes and regrets that many, many D-trans people have right now.
Extreme examples and lies is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing, trying to misrepresent me.
That's the time on this.
Almost to a person has said Marjorie Taylor Greene is not who they want representing them. So yes, this campaign is about Marcus Flowers, not MTG. Thank you.
Joshua, it's your turn.
Marcus Flowers is a generic HOI name. You know, I think of it as like I don't know. He seems like, because I'm not really super familiar with that game, but I grew up playing like NCAA football. He seems like your generic like Road to Glory player, like your quarterback Marcus Flowers. Like that name just sounds like it.
I need a rebuttal to that. You cannot accuse me of insurrection. I was a victim of the January 6th riot just as much as any other member of Congress. That was the third day I had on the job. I had nothing to do with what happened there that day, and I will not have you accuse me of that. That is wrong of you to do. You're lying about me, and you will not defame my character in that manner.
Did Joe Biden win the election, Congresswoman Greene?
Joe Biden is the president of the United States.
You spent your time in Congress.
I didn't mean to do all of that. I was just trying to skip past that, but
what is your process for fact checking?
I'm breaking browser. What's even going on?
The things
what
I
is
say
going
in public
on?
are the truth, and that's why they're
This is so sad, chat. Vince needs a new computer. This is so sad. Can we get a like and subscribe, chat? Real.
In public are the truth, and that's why they're so offensive to Democrats.
Right.
I represent, and I will always protect.
About Marcus Flowers.
Hold on. Okay, we're about
again,
here, right?
I'm completely against what happened on January 6th, but I will not stand by and watch Merrick Garland turn the Department of Justice into a political weapon, and the FBI sending it after parents that are addressing their school boards, people that walked in the Capitol and have been held in jail for nearly 2 years, while Antifa and BLM rioters go free and are never held accountable.
So what I'm hearing is criminals over police officers. That's what I heard.
You're the party of defund the police, Marcus.
So true.
Defund the police. That's rich, Congresswoman Greene. Defund the FBI shirts and hats that you're selling.
I don't think we should even say defund the police anymore, right? Because I think it goes further than that. It's not just that they want to give the police less money. It's that they want to like give the police no power, right? And so what I wouldn't even say it's the party of defund the police. I would just say it's the party of mass crime. I think that's a more appropriate. They're just a party of crime. That's it.
Let's go to round
yes,
three.
The FBI that is targeting.
We're going to cut.
She spent $37,000 in the last quarter alone on flights all over the country. She spends too much time in New York, Bedminster, Florida, Michigan, Arizona, Texas.
This guy, I mean, keep in mind, he's literally Democrat Kim Klacik. Like, he's running a totally online campaign just to raise money for himself. Real.
She's never here in our district.
Time. You've named her, so you get to respond.
Yes, I will respond to that. Marcus has never been a business owner and knows nothing about business. He's never signed the front of a paycheck, so it's hard for him to even comprehend how to do that. He supports the Democrat Party. the party of the Green New Deal, the party of destroying American energy independence, which is the #1 need for manufacturing companies in my district. And by the way, Calhoun is in Gordon County, not Dalton. That's Whitfield County. You don't know anything about our district.
Ooh.
I do. I am going to work very hard to lower inflation and also open up.
He's probably from Atlanta. I don't even know. I don't even know who he is. He probably is born there. But for the sake of argument, like I said, does Marcus Flowers just not seem like he would be the professor of black studies at Georgia Tech? Like, that's who he is. Dude is like a freaking. He's like Cornell West. He reminds me of like Cornell West, but like a more kempt, polished version. You know.
Many opportunities for businesses growing and developing in Northwest Georgia, and I'm so excited to be a part of that.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Real. So yeah, last debate I wanted to go over, but now we can talk a little bit about like the election itself. I think. Actually, here's what I'll say first. Okay, let me be on the record. My official take is that you should vote in the midterms. Groundbreaking take, I know, but because I've heard people. America First people advocate to the otherwise. They say, well, the slate of candidates sucks. I largely agree, right? Like there are good ones out there. A lot of them are disappointing. Fully agree with that. But the idea of should we boycott the elections, I just think that's ridiculous. Okay? I understand the thinking. The thinking is, if we surrender this, then, it'll send a statement to the GOP. But my question is that really going to be effective? Is that really going to work? What is the GOP going to learn if they lose in November? Which I don't think they will. But, there's people saying boycott. Well, what did they learn? So we did that with the Georgia runoffs, right? Did that make the GOP more Trumpian? Did that really send a statement to the GOP? Well, clearly not, because in the following year or two, all the GOP did was move further away from Trump, right? If the boycott of the Georgia runoffs worked and the GOP got the conclusion from it that we wanted them to get, you would have your ideal slate of candidates right now. Yet that has not happened, right? Do you think that if, hypothetically, MAGA people sat out the midterms, the GOP would learn, I guess we can't take the Trump base for granted? Think in reality for a freaking second. Do you think that's what they're going to say? Do you think that's what Mitch McConnell's going to say and Kevin McCarthy and all these clowns? Or are they going to say, actually, the reason we lost, because this is already what like the other side is saying, or they're saying the weakness of Republicans are, they're not going to stand there and say, I wish we hadn't taken the Trump base for granted. No, they're going to stand there and say, we lost because of Trump and the Trump base. They're actually going to blame Trump, and they're also going to blame the culture war. They're going to say, we pushed too hard on LGBT and abortion and whatnot, and we need to moderate ourselves. Like, literally, if you boycott the midterms, hypothetically, and Republicans lose, that is what is going to happen. Like, can we be realistic? Like that is exactly what is going to happen. So you're going to get a worse GOP because of it, because the GOP's conclusion is going to be, regardless of whether it's true, it's going to be, we were too far right, guys. We pushed too hard on the culture war. I guess we got to be a more moderate party now. I guess we got to run Glenn Youngkin for president now, whatever, right? It's going to hurt Trump. It's going to hurt the Trump agenda. And then even on top of that, you say you want Trump in 2024, but you say that the rest of the GOP sucks. How does it help Trump in 2024 if Republicans lose the midterms? Can anyone like any of these like boycott the election people, which is a small minority of clowns, don't get me wrong, but I've heard it said in the sphere. How does that help Trump? Keep this in mind, right? You might say, in 24, we'll retake the House and Senate. It's not that simple, right? Usually control of chambers is something you overturn over the course of like several years, right? So 2018, Democrats win the House. 2020, Republicans chip away at that. 2022, now they're destined to retake the House. That's usually the way it goes. You don't retake chambers in one cycle. Usually a party holds on to them for a few years, Every single cycle, they slowly lose more and more seats, and then it flips, right? So to say we can totally throw the House in 22, give it to the Democrats, heck, give the Democrats like a 30-seat majority for all I care, because I'm based in America first. You understand, it's not very realistic to say you're just going to magically overturn that in 2024, right? It doesn't work that way. Same thing with the Senate. It doesn't work that way. How does it help the Trump agenda, dark MAGA, nuclear MAGA, if Trump gets in and he has the Democrats holding both chambers of Congress? How does that help the America First agenda, genius? How does that help Trump, genius? Oh, but we need Trump in 24. Screw all the other candidates. Trump or nothing. I'm ride or die with Trump. Okay. How does it help Trump to boycott the midterms? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Number one, that'll actually hurt Trump's standing in the 24 primary. Let me make that clear too, right? Because what's going to happen? Everyone's going to blame Trump. Everyone's going to say the reason we lost is because of Trump. We need to be more moderate because of that. It's going to make the case stronger for DeSantis or Youngkin 24. Genius. Okay. And then on top of that, these people claim to care so much about the persecution of January 6th prisoners and whatever, right? How does it help the cause of January 6th defendants for Democrats to maintain control of the House, right? And I'm not saying it's even guaranteed that Republicans will do it. I'll get to the super chats in a second. We got to put pressure on Republicans to do it. Don't get me wrong. But hypothetically, the idea is when Republicans take power, they'll abolish the January 6th commission for good, right? They'll kind of undo the subpoenas of Steve Bannon and whatnot, right? And so, like, Steve Bannon, he'll, if Congress says, no, we can get rid of the subpoena, the charges against him can be dropped. He can basically be de facto pardoned, right? That's how it works. Just how does it help the cause of January 6th defendants for Democrats to get 2 more years of control over the House? The persecution is going to ramp up, and it's going to continue. I'm not saying Republicans will do a perfect job of stopping it. Do you care so much about that? The case for boycotting the election doesn't make any sense, genius. Okay, wise guy. Okay. I really wonder who I'm talking about, by the way. People can speculate who I'm talking about there, but it's just stupid. It's stupid. It's like a controlled opposition take. It's totally counterproductive. It's not a base take. You're not based for boycotting the midterms, okay, and telling people not to vote in the midterms. It doesn't make any sense. It really makes no logical sense. It doesn't help Americans. It doesn't help conservative Americans to have the hostile party have unmitigated control for the next 2 years. It doesn't help January 6th defendants. It doesn't help anyone that, they get to continue their Jan 6 nonsense all the way until the 2024 election. And it doesn't help Trump, folks. It really doesn't. It's not going to make the case stronger for MAGA Republicans if Republicans lose. Everyone's going to blame Trump, and everyone's going to say that dang culture war is what lost us this election. So it's stupid. Sam Matson for $5 says, remember when Mitt Romney lost and the GOP's conclusion was that they were too far right on immigration? Again, yeah, this is what they always say. This is what both parties say, by the way. Every time they lose, the assumption is they were too radical. Okay? That's just a generic assumption that most party leaders draw. That is going to be the assumption if Republicans lose because of your stupid boycott, which it's irrelevant, don't get me wrong, but still, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make logical sense. Okay? Don't boycott the election. That's stupid. Epic Ape says Kanye Tucker 2028. If that's what you want, that's what I'll say. If that's what you want. I'm behind Tucker. I mean, Kanye is a good, cultural window pusher. I don't know if he'd be the best president. Okay, I still think he's kind of schizo. So, but yeah. So, anyways, again, don't boycott the election. It doesn't make sense. Truthfully, we have some decent candidates there too. Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of primaries that I'm very disappointed about. Sam Matson for 5 says, wrong, the Dems never will say they lost because they were too radical. Never. Well, that's not really, because when they did way underperformed in 2020, remember what I'm referring to is that those like Virginia Democrat congresswomen were like, we lost because of the Bernie stuff. We lost because we were too radical. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think at least consultants within the Democrat Party believe that and think that. Okay, that's what I'll say. Maybe openly they won't say that. I think it's a consideration of both parties that, you know, if you lose, you're probably too radical. It's usually most people's take, you know. That's why the party tried to get Biden instead of Bernie, right? Like, I think privately it is something they consider. So anyways, take sip. All right. So with that said, again, don't boycott the election. How do I think we're going to do in the election? You know, I think, like I said, you see the energy now shifting back in our direction. Again, go vote and whatnot, whatever. But early September, there was like cause for concern. I think Rep actually had a tweet about this today. I'll bring it up. We'll point it out. But I think Republicans are they're gonna win the House. I think that's a given. But I think what I will say is I think the kind of toss-up races, like the Masters race, the Oz race, the Herschel Walker race, maybe to an extent. I'm kind of optimistic right now, is what I'll say. Rep broke this down pretty well. Yeah, here it is. GOP up 3.3 in RCP with undecideds breaking R. Dem incumbents failing to get 48% in every swing state, with GOP candidates surging. Abortion not being a top 5 issue for independents. GOP crushing early vote in Florida. You can't look at this election and say it's not a red wave. Yeah, I agree. Sam Madison says, then why do Dems never try to moderate while Republicans do 24/7? Well, I don't think that's true. Don't get me wrong, it's all gaslighting. But Mark Kelly, a Democrat who's trying to moderate. Tim Ryan, a Democrat who's trying to moderate. Raphael Warnock, right? Like this guy was literally like a communist before, and now he's pretending to be like a generic libtard. Joe Biden in the 2020 campaign, it's all gaslighting. Don't get me I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not all like just fake and cringe, but I wouldn't say it's not true that Democrats never try to put on a more moderate face than they really are. I think they do it all the time. Maybe they don't do it enough. For their own sake, they don't do it enough, right? But I wouldn't say it's accurate. They never try to do that. I think Tim Ryan is trying to do that. Tim Ryan is a generic libtard Biden Democrat. He's running as like Andrew Yang 2.0 or something, saying he's a total like independent populist. Mark Kelly, same thing. You know, I think there are quite a few cases of it. But anyways, yeah, you break this down. We're up in the polls. Republicans are up in the polls, I should say. I don't like to say we are Republicans. I'm a conservative. But yeah, Republicans up in the polls. Democrat incumbents are failing to poll at 50%. This is a big one. Abortion is not a top 5 issue for independents. Everyone is saying, well, abortion is what's going to screw over Republicans. Don't get me wrong. It's going to help the Democrat base a little bit. But in terms of, but I would say now the Republican base is pretty energized. In September, not really, right? Not really. It wasn't looking too good in September. But now that the Republican energy is back, now we got to look at, okay, where are the independents breaking? And for independents, if abortion is not a top 5 issue, if their main issues are like inflation, the economy, education, all this stuff, well, those are the issues that Republicans win on, right? Those are like the winning kitchen table issues for the Republican Party. You look at that in the polls, I think that's a good sign. And then the GOP crushing the early vote. It's so true. It's so true. So, You know, so hopefully with that said, we can get we can get Doug Mastriano in, like he's a little bit of an underdog, Tudor Dixon, whatnot. I don't know if Republicans are going to maximize. I'll be honest about that. I don't know if they're going to like sweep all the winnable races, but I would say control the House, pretty safe bet at this point, and probably control the Senate. I don't know if we're going to get every Senate race we want, but it's not looking too bad is what I'll say about that. They never moderate in their voting, though. 47 House R's voted for Obergefell, while no House Dem except... Well, I was talking about their rhetoric, right? I was talking about what they're going to run on. I would say that in terms of the way they vote, I don't think that's a public PR anything. I think it's that Democrats are far left. Ideologically, Republicans are like center right at best. And so that's why the way they vote is the way they vote. I'm talking about how they frame... as the way they campaign, the way they use rhetoric, right? Like that. That's more because we're talking about an election, okay? So it's that's what I'm trying to say. You know, it's about the way they're going to present their campaign, if that makes sense. Okay. Either way, I think we're splitting hairs. I think this is an irrelevant debate. I think we both understand what we're trying to say. Okay. All I'm saying is the conclusion Democrats draw when they lose elections sometimes is that, well, we were too far left. Okay. Because if it weren't the case, then they would have been just fine with Bernie Sanders being the nominee. Why did they try to get Biden out there? Because they thought Biden was more electable than Bernie. Like that's the point I'm trying to make. Okay. Like I don't know why we keep arguing about this. Like I think we both we're both trying to say the same thing. Okay. But anyways, Christopher for 10, thank you very much. He says this midterm elections can be a repeat of 2006, but in our favor, we can repeat 08 and 24. However, be on the watch for neocons. Yeah, it's very true. We can repeat, we need a repeat of 1968. Okay. It's a good parallel, actually. It's a good parallel. The return of Trump, Richard Nixon, Donald Richard Nixon Trump. Okay. But yeah, so true. Thank you very much for the 10. Thank you guys all for the support tonight. So yeah, why is Charlie Crist trending? Let's see. What did Charlie Crist do? Let's take a look. I don't know. Did he say he's trending on Twitter? Let's see what's going on here. Raise your hand if you're ready to vote for Charlie Crist and Val Demings to send Marco Rubio to be pool boys at Mar-a-Lago. 02. Yeah, I'm sure the Florida election is going to be real close, folks. DeSantis is basically a terrorist. I wonder what state this guy is from. Oh, Californian hippie. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that just tells you a lot, doesn't it? Just tells you a lot. This is some Florida woman, okay. Charlie Crist could use some help right now. I want to see DeSantis defeated. I want to see this man's political future go out in smoke. In the Tampa area, 19 people were arrested. It's a form of terrorism. I don't know what she's talking about. DeSantis wants to look tough, but he also wants to suppress the vote. You want to continue the game? Where is this woman from? Does it say? Los Angeles. Oh, so we got all the people tweeting about Charlie Crist. They're from Los Angeles. That tells you a lot. Floridians join the blue wave. Let's see where this person is from. It doesn't say. It doesn't say. All right, I hate to break it to Democrats who still think Florida is in reach. You can tell by the TV ads who's going to win. Okay? Because keep that in mind, like DeSantis is leading in the polls. He's the obvious front runner. Or maybe if Charlie Crist put a bunch of resources in, he can make it competitive. Guys, Charlie Crist has no money. And the reason I say that is because on TV, every single ad, I'm telling you this, I've not seen a single Democrat ad on TV in this entire state. I'm yet to see it. I'm sure they're airing in some place. I'm yet to see it. Ron DeSantis spamming the airwaves and Republicans spamming the airwaves, and they already have the built-in advantage. So point being, they're going to get crushed. Democrats here, they have no money, they have no message, they have no energy. I don't know. I don't know what people are talking about. Okay. It's hilarious. Charlie Crist is proud to be a proud Joe Biden Democrat. In this video, he promises to lead Florida like Biden is leading America.
Who will comport them, but it was bipartisan. And it's because President Biden, extended a hand and offered the opportunity for them to participate. We can do the same thing in Florida if we have a governor who will comport themselves the way that President Biden has here in Washington. That's the kind of leadership we need. And that's the kind of governor I was. And that's the kind of governor I will be again, if you can help me get there, and we'll make it happen.
I think you can tell by stuff like that, he's not campaigning to win. Okay? Which he didn't have a great shot of doing to begin with. But anyone who's trying to win Florida as a Democrat, they'd be running a campaign akin to, Tim Ryan or someone right now. He's going out there and just saying, I'm a Joe Biden Democrat. Yeah, you're in a Republican state trying to flip it. You're going to go out there and say you're a Joe Biden Democrat, who himself is is a very unpopular president. Independents all hate Biden. Hence why you see so many Democrats right now, Mark Kelly, Tim Ryan, etc., trying to dissociate from Joe Biden. They're trying to say, I'm not a Joe Biden Democrat. This guy in Florida is saying he's a Joe Biden Democrat. And people think he has a shot? What a joke. I mean, what an absolute joke. If anything, he's probably saying he's a Joe Biden Democrat because he wants the publicity and the attention from people like this, right? From Mr. Californian hippie over here. Like, that's the reason he's running as a resist lib. Because if he wanted to run any degree of a serious campaign, he would not be talking like this. But anyways, let's see. Charlie Crist. This is where 4 years of Ron DeSantis has gotten Floridians. Families can no longer make ends meet. There is no insurance in Florida except for citizens who would insure our house. The lowest quote we get was $6,700. We're seriously thinking of moving to another state. The payment for house insurance, car insurance, and health insurance is more than I make a year, says VP from Boynton Beach. Where is that? Where's Boynton Beach? He lives on the beach and he wonders why things are so expensive. Let's take a look. All right, so this is the guy who's complaining about the cost of living. You guys ready? Let's see where he lives. Gee, I wonder why it's expensive to live here. Wow, it's literally 1984. It's like expensive to live in this town, in this place. Oh no. Oh no. This is actually a really nice place. I can't imagine why property and cost of living here would be so expensive. I really couldn't imagine why. It must be because of Ron Death Santis. See, Death Santis is bringing up. Oh, so it's like an excerpt of West Palm Beach. I wonder why it is so expensive to live on the beach in South Florida. What a fool. What a joke. They could have picked someone from like, I don't know, like Tampa or something, Orlando, Jackson. They picked a guy from Boynton Beach, literally like this place. Yeah, I can't believe this place would be expensive I can't believe it's so expensive to live on the beach. This must be because of Ron Death Santis, folks. Yeah. Okay, buddy. It's a great case. By the way, Charlie Crist was governor. He was literally the governor of Florida for like 8 years or whatever. Why did he not make it affordable to live in Boynton Beach? I don't know. I really can't imagine why it's so expensive to live on the beach in South Florida next to a bunch of rich people in literal tropical paradise. I literally could not imagine why. Incredible. Val Demings owns Marco Rubio. I'm not even a Marco Rubio fan, but the idea. But this is such a. Don't try to tell me Florida's a red state. DeSantis only won by 0.4 points. Rick Scott only won by 0.1 in a blue wave year. By the way, what were the 2020 margins? I wonder. Yeah. But yeah, okay, all right. We'll wrap the stream here, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta go freaking finish this. He read it twice. I did read it twice. No, I didn't. You're lying. You're lying. I thought I did not read. I don't know. Did I click on it though? I don't know if I clicked on it. Would you ever get in a debate back and forth discussion with Mr. Beat? I don't like. I don't know. I guess maybe I would. Would it really be that productive? Like, you know, he's just gonna call. Actually, you know what? I don't think I would enjoy that very much because the guy's just any argument you use, the guy's like, that's a logical fallacy, bro. It's like so I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I would think about it. You like that answer? I would think about it. But the guy is literally just gonna be like, hey, you're strawmanning me. Hey, it's slippery slope. No. It's like I can't stand people who debate like that. Like, well, I've never seen Mr. Beat debate, in fairness, but he does that. Hunter Avalon, like the same way. Like, you can't get anything productive out of someone debating like that because it's really not good faith. It's really more like pseudo intellectual. Like they're just trying to look smart. You know what I mean? Or they're trying to look smarter than you. Is all it really is. But yeah, okay, we'll wrap the stream here. Remember to leave a like before you go. And until next time, folks, I got to finish my homework, but God bless. Alpha moves only. Peace.
And leaving it, I do so with this prayer. May God's grace be with you in all the days ahead.
And it's easy to be discouraged right now, but it won't defeat God's church. Be encouraged. There are thousands of prophets who have not bowed the knee to Baal. And be encouraged. At the end of the day, the bride of Christ will be defended. She will be protected. She will be preserved. And she will be restored, redeemed, and rescued by her Savior. Amen.